What is the difference between a turnkey rental property, an off-market rental property, and an as-is rental property? So and this is kind of specific to turnkey world, because I don't know if you would necessarily, if you're just looking for rental properties or whatever, I don't know if you would necessarily see this comparison directly, like over here might be off market, over here might be turnkey. But what I've started seeing a lot lately in turnkey world, because of where we are in the general real estate economy as a whole, prices are high, all sorts of stuff. Now if you're looking for turnkey rental properties, there's new construction options. There's just kind of different options coming up just based on, whatever. Whereas before it was all just straight turnkey, end of story, whatever. So at least with the properties I work with, I'm starting to use these terms more. Like I'm labeling some properties off-market properties, some properties turnkey properties, and then I don't do anything with as-is properties, but I have seen those pop up in supposed turnkey world. So I want to clarify the difference between these three terms. So since I come from turnkey world, let's talk about turnkeys first. So the term turnkey is technically related to the condition of a property. So if you buy, the whole idea metaphorically, you stick a key in the door, turn it, and you're making cash flow on day one. So what does that mean? That means the property is already rehabbed. Preferably there are already tenants in there paying rent, hence the cash flow on day one. And in most cases, there's property managers on standby to manage this property for you once you purchase it. So stick the key in the door, make money, you're about as hands off as you can be. Turnkey rental property. So that's technically the condition, but when, if you follow me, you know that when we talk about turnkey rental properties, we're specifically talking about properties that come from turnkey providers. So you could buy a turnkey property next door to you, it's something in turnkey condition, but from an investing standpoint, usually we're talking about buying properties from turnkey providers. So these are companies offering these properties for you to purchase. They're the ones buying them, rehabbing them, putting tenants, all that kind of stuff. So that's the standard turnkey rental property. Fresh rehab, tenants in place. Hopefully, some companies don't do that. Property managers in place. That's the end of it. Now what's coming up a lot are the off-market properties. So how is this different than turnkey? In turnkey world, when you start seeing off-market properties, and hopefully they're labeled appropriately, the idea is that basically you're still getting the turnkey setup. So you're getting the property with tenants and with property managers on standby. The only major difference might be that the rehab may not be exactly brand new, or it could have been somewhere between 1 and 3 years old, or in some cases, depending on the off-market property, it might be a decade old. So really the biggest thing in question is the rehab. Now, a lot of the turnkey providers who are working with off-market properties, the idea for you as an investor is that you still get a turnkey level property. So if you pursue one of these off-market properties, and let's say, I don't know, what would be a big rehab item? Let's say the roof. So in a normal turnkey, because the roof is one of the most expensive things on a property. So when you're in turnkey world, normal turnkeys, you don't want an old roof on the property, because the whole idea with a turnkey is that you shouldn't have any major expenses for the first 10 years. That's the hope. So you want to verify that the roof is either new or very, newish, something. The appliances are not old. Any major item that could go out that would cost you a lot of money, you want to ensure that those are in really good shape, because you don't want those to go out before 10 years. That's the whole idea. So on an off-market property, what if the roof isn't brand new? Well, it depends. So if a rehab was done 1 to 3 years ago and the roof is, say, 3 to 5 years old, probably no big deal. That may not even be a huge deal on a regular turnkey. But let's think about an off-market property that hasn't been rehabbed for, say, 10 years, and the roof is 15 years old. Well, depending on the life expectancy of that roof type, that may be an impending expense. Now, depending on who's offering the off-market property, if it's a turnkey provider, you probably have pretty good grounds to say, hey, I'm going to need you to replace that roof, because the idea is that even though it's an off-market property, the idea of turnkey still remains. The whole idea not to be like, so you don't have a major expense in the first 10 years. So if you have a 15-year-old roof, roofs can go, 20 to 50 years, depending on what kind it is, find that out. But you may want to discuss that with them. Some of the off-market properties, you're actually buying from the current owner if it's not the turnkey provider. So this would be the case of like, if you're buying any other house, even if you're buying a house for yourself and you find this house, you get an inspection and the roof is some age, you can negotiate with that seller and see if they, even if they don't want to replace the roof, maybe they contribute some amount of dollars towards your impending roof replacement. So kind of what I'm driving at here is that turnkeys should be freshly rehabbed. So if the roof is old, if any appliances are old, rehab's not completed, if the carpet's not in new condition, whatever it is, easy peasy, ask the seller to fix all those things because you should be getting in turnkey condition. But off market may have a little bit of older stuff. For example, let's say one that had a rehab 3 years ago has had the same tenants for 3 years and the carpets maybe aren't in the best shape. Well, at that point, for a normal turnkey, you'd be getting brand new carpets. But for this off-market property, do you want to require them to change out all the carpet when that tenant is probably just going to mess them up again? So maybe you don't get brand new carpet in that case. But that's when you want to start running your numbers, figuring out, you know, if you're going to, you don't want to overpay for a house that the carpet is inevitable, is going to have to get changed out, or the roof or the whatever. So again, off market, the idea is that you're getting generally a turnkey setup, but the rehab may be a little bit older. So that's when you really want to pay attention to exactly what condition are we looking at it here. And like I said, the big things that I'm looking for in that inspection are, the question I ask myself is, what are my impending costs? What is this house possibly going to cost me in the next 10 years? And if any of those items are pretty big and severe, I want to talk to the seller about that. And I may not pursue that property, or I may ask that they contribute towards it, or maybe it does need a new roof. Who knows? So turnkey, just assume everything's brand new, ask for it if it's not, or I shouldn't say assume everything's brand new, but you know, 1 to 3 years old or something, like the carpet's not old and tattered. Off market, you're still getting a turnkey setup, but the rehab may be at different stages. So you just want confirmation on exactly where you are with that. And then the last one is the as-is properties. And to me, these are the most dangerous. There used to be a turnkey provider. I don't know if they still do it. And maybe it's multiple turnkey providers. I don't know. But they, in the past, I've known some people that they convince them to buy a property as is. And what you need to know about as is you're getting the property exactly as it is, which can be insanely dangerous. So with the turnkey setups, whether it's turnkey or off market, again, the idea is that you're not going to have these big impending expenses. So you have the right to request, hey, we need to do something about that roof, or hey, we need to do something about that carpet. With an as is property, you're just buying it exactly as it is, period. It doesn't matter what comes up on an inspection, whatever. And the dangerous part of that is you may not even know what expenses are looming. So there's no real option to protect yourself. I mean, yeah, you can get your property inspection so you can have idea of like, oh, the roof only has about 10 years left. Okay, that's an expense I'm gonna have to take on. But, you know, as is always kind of gives me the feeling of like, you're on your own, homie. Like the seller is gonna sell you the property, but they're like, their hands are clean. They owe you nothing, whatever. So hopefully that as is property, you're buying much cheaper than the rest of them. But my caution about as is, and this is what I feel like people don't understand, is if you go to a turnkey company and they convince you to buy a property as is, because you went into that company with the mindset of buying a turnkey, it's like something doesn't, it's like, oh, I'm getting a turnkey. And so they say this word as is, and it doesn't register quite the same way it normally would. So be very cautious when you buy an as is property. You're literally buying it in the exact condition it's in, and end of story. No warranties, no rehabs, no anything, and it can be dangerous. So, you know, as is properties, if you're a brand new investor or you're truly wanting turnkey, you need to be very careful about that. I don't want to say because there's a reason they're selling it as is. You know, oftentimes they just want to offload properties, and they may be selling it significantly cheaper than if they did do the work or participated in the work. But again, new investors can get screwed by this because they don't realize what that means. So some people I know have bought an as-is property from a turnkey provider, and in the first year or two, they've had massive expenses. Again, because none of it was tended to. So turnkey, off market, as is. Personally, if you're looking through turnkeys or whatever, I would just avoid anything as is. I honestly don't see that many of them. Just be conscientious if you hear someone use that term. Turnkey, turn the key in the door, make money from day one. It should be a very fresh rehab, very fresh. And off market, still a turnkey setup, but there may be, the inspection report may come up with more stuff. There may be a couple looming possible fixes, but again, in those cases, still 100% ask the seller to remedy those things. So, while the rehab itself may not be fresh, it could be where you still have new appliances, still, no looming expenses. So I'm hoping as you explore Turnkey World and you start to see more and more of these terms and classifications of different properties, that this helps give you an idea of exactly what it is you're getting if you go that route.